CBS News special report, the capture of Saddam Hussein. Tomorrow morning's newspaper headlines, got him. Dan Rather at CBS News headquarters in New York with continuing coverage of a very big day in the battle for Iraq, in the battle for the confidence and trust of the Iraqi people, and in the overarching worldwide battle against terror. We are standing by for remarks from the White House, now expected within 15 minutes or so by President Bush. The White House has gone to some pains to say this is not a formal address to the nation, but the President just has some things he wants to say. And if you're saying to yourself, well, I thought he was going to be up at noon Eastern time, that's what we were told earlier by the White House. But I think understandably on a day like today, they set up a schedule, hope to stick to it, but we're now told it's probably about 15 minutes away. Now, President Bush's comments will follow the official announcement earlier this morning of Saddam's capture in the basement. It was really just a hole, a literal spider, a rat hole, down in a hovel, all not far from his birth hometown of Tikrit. Soldiers from the U.S. Army's 4th Infantry Division out of Fort Hood, Texas, made the collar. The first pictures of the captured Saddam show him heavily bearded with a lot of gray down at the bottom of his beard. Possibly died to throw somebody off, but frankly, it looks natural. But the more recent photograph, this is the one issued later, shows Saddam relatively clean-shaven, although still with his trademark mustache. This is what we call the perp picture, the kind of picture you take at the police station after you get arrested. They either shaved him or had him shave himself. He left his mustache until they took that picture, which is quite a bit different from the videotape pictures that were taken on the spot where he was collared. But if we can go back to that still picture a moment, I mean, this is a front-page picture. We've called attention to it before. The look in the eyes of Saddam Hussein tells you a lot. Now, CBS News correspondent Thalia Ashuris reports that she has been told by a couple of sources in Crete that Saddam Hussein has already been taken out of Iraq. I want to emphasize there is, as yet, no confirmation of those reports. Thalia Ashuris and other CBS News correspondents are attempting to confirm it. That's a report. We put it in the category, couple of sources, but we do not yet know for sure that Saddam Hussein has been taken out of the country. We don't, in fact, know where he is, other than we were told officially and on camera by the military people in Tikrit that they had sent him south, so to speak, which the assumption being to Baghdad. But that doesn't mean he couldn't have been taken from Baghdad then out of the country. Fact is, we don't know where he is right now. Now, nor is there any official decision as yet as to when and if Saddam Hussein will be put on trial, or as to whom might conduct any such trial should it be held. Now, early this morning, America's leading coalition partner, British Prime Minister Tony Blair, addressed his people and said Saddam's capture guarantees that Iraq need never again fear that Saddam will return to power. Well, as sometimes happens with live television, happens from time to time, the videotape is not ready. I can tell you that Tony Blair didn't speak for long. As we've come accustomed to, he was very articulate, even eloquent, in saying, among other things, that the Sunnis, this is the religious group under Islam to which Saddam Hussein belonged and which ruled Iraq through Saddam Hussein, that the Sunnis, said Prime Minister Tony Blair, should in effect see this as a moment of opportunity for them. In effect saying, there is a new Iraq. You can now see it with Saddam Hussein in custody, and we welcome you to be part of the new Iraq, said in effect Tony Blair to the Sunnis in Iraq today when he spoke a little earlier in the day. Now, we're going to pause for just 1 second. We don't have the videotape of Tony Blair up. We are waiting for President Bush to make his remarks from the White House. And so let me just ask inside, where do you want me to go now? Well, there being no answer, let's talk to Byron Pitts again. Byron, we obviously we're putting against elements of our coverage. Sure. That in talking, struck by you said you talked to some families who had family members die in 9/11. Tell me a little bit more about what they had to say.
I called a woman whose husband was a businessman working in 9/11. She was on the phone with her husband that morning. She could hear the building collapsing on him, and he said, "I love you," and said his goodbyes. And we've been in contact over the years. She said that while she was relieved that Saddam Hussein has been captured, she called it a good thing. He was a bad man who deserved to be behind bars. She was also clear to make the point that for her and for a number of her friends, the capture of Saddam Hussein is far different from the capture of Osama bin Laden. And he is the person that for them, many of the 9/11 victims, symbolizes is the real face of terror. He is the person that they want dealt with and captured. So I think now politically and also for people at home, the shift will come. Saddam has been captured. That's a good thing. What about Osama bin Laden?
Myron Pitts. And we go back now to our Washington Bureau and CBS News correspondent, our chief correspondent for National Security Affairs, David Martin. David, what are you hearing? What do you know?
Well, Dan, I've heard a couple of nuggets in the press conference by General Odierno. For one thing, he said that only U.S. forces participated in this operation, so these reports that Iraqi Kurdish forces were involved apparently are not true. And then he described the intelligence process which led them to this pair of farmhouses, the farmhouses being empty, but between them there is this little shed where the spider hole where Saddam was hiding was. And he described it as beginning about 10 days ago when they started bringing in the families of mid-level bodyguards for Saddam Hussein. And in that process, they finally turned up one person who told them about this farmhouse and said that they might find a senior bodyguard there and possibly Saddam himself. And that is the reason why what is called Operation Red Dawn was launched, to check out this lead. He further described what they found, and I think this goes a long way toward explaining why it took so long to find Saddam. There were no cell phones. There was no sign of any entourage. If people came to visit him, they probably did it coming across the Tigris River, which flows right by that farm, in a small boat. There was nothing to draw attention to this farmhouse. And so all of the high-tech American spy apparatus of satellites and antennas that can intercept phone calls were just of no use. And General Odierno thought that Saddam had only been at this place for a short time, and that he probably had 20 or 30 other places just like this, sprinkled around Iraq, and that he moved between them, usually moving, according to General Odierno, every 3 or 4 hours. Now, the fact that Saddam was down in that hole, to me, says he knew the troops were there. He heard them when they were searching the nearby farmhouses. If he had wanted to fight to the last, he could have. And I think it'll be one of the very interesting things to try and find out from Saddam is, were there other times when the U.S. military was this close, where they were in the right compound, but they didn't find the right hole where he was hiding in? Now, U.S. Intelligence analysts are obviously going to interrogate Saddam for all the information they can get, but one senior official here in Washington I spoke to earlier this morning says they do not expect him to be particularly revealing, but obviously you have to go through all the hoops, and then he will, according to the current plan, be turned over to the Iraqis for the war crime tribunal, and it is up to the Iraqis then to do with him what they will. Dan?
David Martin reporting from Washington on various details. Now, I know it may be hard to follow. We hope it isn't. But General Odierno was so good to explain the situation. When David talks about a farmhouse in Iraq, he's not talking about something out of a Wyeth painting, some big farmhouse. As you can see, and to put this in perspective, we may not be able to get the pictures up just now, that you had this small opening, you see, sort of facing, if you will, there it is. Now, you know, that's what passes for, quote, the farmhouse, if you will. This is money that was found inside, allegedly, supposedly, and reportedly about $750,000 with Saddam Hussein. When he was captured, he also had a pistol on him, which he did not use. But this is sort of the outside of the farmhouse area. And inside there, this is not a very large place in itself, but inside there was, on the floor, was the hole, the kind of rat hole or spider hole, just barely big enough for a man, particularly someone over 6 feet tall, as Saddam Hussein was, to get through down into the hole, which is actually inside this hole, as I understand it, but down inside that hole, and just space for one person. And this is the actual opening that he went through, official U.S. government and military videotape. So he goes down through that opening, and then he can just barely put himself, lay himself out in there with a special ventilation, so he didn't run, hopefully, any risk from his standpoint of ever running out of air. This place right beside the Tigris River. Here again, you see the picture, now famous, having been made so over the last few hours, checking his teeth identification. Now, this may or may not be an important bit of information. At least it's an interesting tidbit. According to what CBS News believes to be a reliable source, Tariq Aziz, the spokesman to the West for so long for Saddam Hussein, the foreign minister, and then I think it was the assistant prime minister, Tariq Aziz, who was raised as a Christian in overwhelmingly Muslim Iraq, and Saddam Hussein always trusted him because he knew that Tariq Aziz was not a threat to take over from him. But Tariq Aziz, who was captured some time ago, according to our information, was brought in to confirm the identity of Saddam Hussein. Remember, Saddam Hussein was captured on Saturday, if you will, but the United States government not only wanted to make sure it was Saddam Hussein, but they wanted to make sure that they could prove to the world, and most especially to the Iraqis, that it was Saddam Hussein. So they checked his teeth. That's part of what the doctor apparently was doing when you saw him examining his teeth. This is a picture of Saddam Hussein later, after his capture, when he was either shaven or made to shave, but was allowed to leave his mustache. But in the earlier part where you saw, we're talking about confirming, how do we know it's Saddam Hussein? And keeping in mind there'll be people saying, well, you know, governments are this way, and how do we know that it's Saddam Hussein? Well, they checked his teeth against his dental records. They get blood samples, DNA, fingerprints. And then CBS News has been told Tariq Aziz was brought in and say, we want you to tell us whether this is Saddam Hussein or not. And according to our information, Tariq Aziz looked him over, didn't have to look him over very, very, very long, because he's seen him thousands of times. Tariq Aziz says, yes, that is Saddam Hussein. Now, these pictures with the beard taken just after he was captured, the other picture without the beard taken after he was captured. For those of you who may be joining us along the way or saying to yourself, well, what's next? President Bush is expected to talk to the American people coming in about a minute and a half or 2 minutes from now from the White House, slightly delayed from the original schedule, which was at noon straight up Eastern time. But we expect to have the president up from the White House and talking. The White House has gone to some lengths to say, look, this is not a big prepared address. It's more in the order of what President Roosevelt used to call a fireside chat. Nobody at the White House has called it a fireside chat, but that's the way they're attempting to position it, if you will. It's not a big address to the nation and the world. It's more a talk in the wake of this very big development today of Saddam Hussein being caught. Now, as to whether Saddam Hussein is still in the country or not is open to some question. We have reported, and again, I want to put it in some context for you, based on sources in Tikrit, CBS News correspondent Thalia Shura says she was told that Saddam Hussein had been taken out of the country. But, important, we do not know that. We don't know exactly where he is at the moment. And what happened today, based on some intelligence, and CBS News correspondent David Martin says it was not a tip as such. It wasn't, as someone asked a question at the news conference this morning, it wasn't Saddam Hussein's second wife or anybody saying you should look for him here. It was the accumulation of some intelligence that was gathered from going back to re-question some detainees. And from that, the intelligence community came up with the idea, look in this place, and that's exactly what the 4th Army Division did today. We're now going to take you live to the White House and the President of the United States, who will be talking about today's capture in Iraq of Saddam Hussein. Here now is the President.
Good afternoon. Yesterday, December the 13th, at around 8:30 p.m. Baghdad time, United States military forces captured Saddam Hussein alive. He was found near a farmhouse outside the city of Tikrit in a swift raid conducted without casualties. And now the former dictator of Iraq will face the justice he denied to millions. The capture of this man was crucial to the rise of a free Iraq. It marks the end of the road for him and for all who bullied and killed in his name. For the Ba'athist holdouts largely responsible for the current violence, there will be no return to the corrupt power and privilege they once held. For the vast majority of Iraqi citizens who wish to live as free men and women, this event brings further assurance that the torture chambers and the secret police are gone forever. And this afternoon, I have a message for the Iraqi people. You will not have to fear the rule of Saddam Hussein ever again. All Iraqis who take the side of freedom have taken the winning side. The goals of our coalition are the same as your goals: sovereignty for your country, dignity for your great culture, and for every Iraqi citizen, the opportunity for a better life. In the history of Iraq, a dark and painful era is over. A hopeful day has arrived. All Iraqis can now come together and reject violence and build a new Iraq. The success of yesterday's mission is a tribute to our men and women now serving in Iraq. The operation was based on the superb work of intelligence analysts who found the dictator's footprints in a vast country. The operation was carried out with skill and precision by a brave fighting force. Our servicemen and women and our coalition allies have faced many dangers in the hunt for members of the fallen regime and in their effort to bring hope and freedom to the Iraqi people.
Unfortunately, we have lost the audio and video from the White House. We pick it up now.
I also have a message for all Americans. The capture of Saddam Hussein does not mean the end of violence in Iraq. We still face terrorists who would rather go on killing the innocent than accept the rise of liberty in the heart of the Middle East. Such men are a direct threat to the American people, and they will be defeated. We've come to this moment through patience and resolve and focused action, and that is our strategy moving forward. The war on terror is a different kind of war, waged capture by capture, cell by cell, and victory by victory. Our security is assured by our perseverance and by our sure belief in the success of liberty. And the United States of America will not relent until this war is won. May God bless the people of Iraq, and may God bless America. Thank you.
President Bush speaking to the people of America and the world from the White House Cabinet Room. We do apologize for the technical difficulty that we had. Recapping the developments of this remarkable morning, Saddam Hussein is a U.S. prisoner. He was captured last night in a so-called spider hole near Saddam's hometown of Tikrit. Saddam was heavily bearded. He had a pistol. He didn't use it. Upon his capture, he was examined almost immediately, and by doctors he was heavily bearded. He looked haggard, but in the most recently released military photograph of how he appears now, Saddam Hussein is seen as cleanly shaven, though still with his trademark familiar signature mustache. For U.S. military forces and for Saddam's Iraqi enemies, this is a moment of triumph and rejoicing. The long-term implications for Iraq, for the Middle East, for the overarching war against terror, for the United States political dynamic, all of this still to be revealed. This This has been CBS News, continuing live coverage of the capture of Saddam Hussein. Dan Rather in New York. Right now we're turning things over to our friends at CBS Sports for NFL Today. But we'll be back with updates throughout the afternoon. And of course, we'll have complete coverage on tonight's CBS Evening News, as well as on 60 Minutes tonight. For now, Dan Rather and the CBS News team in New York. We'll see you later.
Experience CBS News.